Okay, so your GMO greetings. Yet I say everyone for tuning in to this live stream on the Medut Ntoro. Want to give people a minute to come in. If you have any issues with the sound or the images, just let me know in the chat room. I'm going to put something in the chat room for you now. Okay, so that is the link in the chat room. Okay, Irase, appreciate that. So that is the link in the chat room. So let me pull this up. Well, first of all, I am Odwirafo Kwesi Radnehempata Akan Odwirafo of Aquamumina Maruka Tifimudi Aquamu Nation in North America within Ojira Mine, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afurakaidi people, African Black people in the Western Hemisphere. So we're going to talk about briefly our two-part course on the Medut Ntoro, and the term Medut Ntoro. Medut in the language of Kamit means symbols or words, and Ntoro means divinity. So the sacred or divine Ntoro, words or symbols, Medut, that is the ancient term for what the Greeks call hieroglyphics or the sacred writing. So Medut Ntoro is divine inscription. So we did a two-part course. It was in total 12 weeks, but we broke it up into 6 weeks for one part of the course, the first half, 6 weeks for the second half. And what we're doing in the course, this is the flyer for the first one, and it is now an archive course, so you can get both of them. This is the second one, this is part 2. So what we did was we went through a specific book written by an elder who is now an ancestor, Ankh Mira. Let me show you the book that we go through. And when you get the book, when you take the course, you can take the archive version. It's self-study. You can take your time and go through part 1, which is 6 weeks. Most of the sessions, we did it on Zoom, so each session was about 2.5 hours. We're going through different parts of the book and so forth. But we're also adding additional information which sets us apart from what other individuals are doing. So it took us 6 weeks to get through the first half of the book, and then 6 weeks to get through the second half. So that's why it's broken up into 2 sections. Let me show you the book first. Okay. So this is the book, Let the Ancestors Speak, Removing the Veil of Mysticism from Medut Ntoro, or Medut Ntoro, as we say, by Ankh Mira. For example, by the way, this is Amenemhat III from the Middle Empire of ancient Kemet, Pera, so-called pharaoh from the Middle Empire, in Sut, sovereign king, and so forth. So it says a guide to the grammar of the language of Kemet. So this book is one of the better books out, especially it's written by one of our people. So you have greater insight into the Afurakani Afrakani African Foundation for the Culture. It's a 271-page book. It's very thorough. Not only is it introductory with regard to reading and writing the language, the language and the grammar and so forth, but it also goes into intermediate stages, so on a collegiate level even. So it's a very thorough text written by one of our people. We go through the entire text. Now, what we do in addition to that is, if you get a book about how to read the hieroglyphics and they give you basic things on the internet and you can download that, or you can order a book off of Amazon and you can look through that and so forth. But what they won't share with you, which is very important for us, because it's just not something that's intriguing for us. This is our ancestral culture. The same words, the same terms, the same meanings, the same abosom, the same goddesses and gods that you see in ancient Kemet are the very same words and meanings and language and so forth, and deities that were carried with us across the continent when we migrated away from Kamit, Nubia, and Kemet, Egypt, into the western and central and southern part of Africa, Africa, and continued the ancestral religion and the language. And then hundreds of years later, some of us were taken from those regions and forced into North America during enslavement, and we carried the same language and culture and worship of the same divinities, forces in nature, goddesses and gods that we had always been dealing with for thousands of years. And that ended up in the Hoodoo tradition in North America, which is Akan, and the Juju tradition in North America, which is Yoruba, the Voodoo tradition, which is Ewe, the Ngangan tradition, which is Fang, the Wanga tradition, which is Ovambo, the Grigri tradition, which is Mendi, the Gola and Kisi traditions, the Gullah and Geechee traditions, which come from the Gola and Kitsi people in Sierra Leone and so forth. So we never stop practicing the same culture. And we can prove the cultural continuity of that. So not only do we show the language and the grammar, but we show the direct cultural continuity to our living people today. Let me give you an example of that, which we do that's in addition to this book. So when you take the course, you get this 271-page ebook, of course, and then we go through the course, but we also give you information in addition to that. So let me show you some of the work that we published. So I've published 31 books myself. Recently, we did an anthology a few months ago, which is now available. This is the Odwirafo True Historical Anthology. It is a 600-page book, 8.5 by 11. I took 12, and you see this on the back cover, 12 of the books that deal with true historical information, cosmology, and so forth. And I put them all together in one encyclopedia-sized volume. So it's 12 books in one, 600 pages, 8.5 by 11 full color. So you'll see we even deal with some of the Medut Ntoro, the hieroglyphs in here. See if you can see that. It's doing a little blur thing right now. Okay. But let me pull it up just on the ebook side. One of the things that we'll show you here. So this is one of the things that we published showing the Akan vocalizations of our language of ancient ancestral language of Kemet. So when I published this, I'm Akan. There are over 26 million Akan people in Ghana and Ivory Coast in West Africa, one of the largest ethnic groups on the continent, and also one of the largest groups from whom we were stolen and forced into North America. So there are a lot of people stolen from the Igbo ethnic group and forced into enslavement. A lot of people stolen from the Yoruba people in Nigeria, forced into enslavement. A lot of people stolen from the Congo people, forced into enslavement. A lot of people stolen from the Akan people and forced into enslavement. Those of us who are Akan, who were forced over here, we continued Akan ancestral religion under the Akan term Undu, which later came to be pronounced Hoodoo, and we continued the culture. We worshiped the same divinities as we did in Ghana and Ivory Coast, and the regions of what's today's Ghana and Ivory Coast. But it's the same culture from ancient Kamit and Kemet. So the Hoodoo terms like mojo, I got my mojo working, or the term hoodoo itself, or kanche, conjure, and so forth. All of these terms are Akan, but they also go back to ancient Kemet, and we prove that. Let me show you some of the Akan linguistic terms. This is one of our publications. Sometimes the words in Kemet are written with simply the consonants without the vowel placements. Sometimes they do include vowels, even though you'll hear certain linguists say they didn't have any vowels in ancient Kemet, which is not accurate. We can show clearly that specific Medutu, specific symbols represent the vowel sounds, which is obvious, but we can show the vocalizations in the Akan language. So for example, hold on one second. Okay. For example, if you look at the term kes, you see the bowl here with the lip and the horizontal bolt. The bowl with the lip is the k sound, the k sound. The horizontal bolt is one of the s sounds. in the language of Kamit. So KSKS. In this dictionary, they had a convention of adding an E in between consonants if they didn't know what the vowel placement was. So it's really spelled KSKS. The bold is the K sound, the bolt is the S sound, and it's reduplicated KSKS, or kes. In Coptic, you'll see the late period language. It says kaskes, to chatter foolishly, to jest. So that's what it means in the language of ancient Kemet. If we are the people who migrated away, we should be able to, intuitively, should be able to understand that, well, if we look in our own Akan dictionary of the Akan people, the tree language of the Akan people, we should find the same terms with the same meanings in our dictionaries, in our language, if we're the same people. So, you look in the Akan dictionary, kasa kasa. What does that mean? To talk much, talk noisily, to chatter. Kes, to chatter foolishly, to jest. Also to dispute, contend in words, and so forth. Altercate, to wrangle. That also means to jest as well. So to chatter foolishly, kes, which is kesa. We pronounce that kasa. To talk much, talk noisily, to chatter. Same word, same meaning, with the proper vowel placements. So since we still speak the language, we know what the vowel placements are. The whites in our offspring would see KSKS. They didn't know if it was kes or kus or kis or kos. They didn't know what the vowel placement was. We still speak the language, so we do know. Give a couple more examples. Hem, to roar, to bellow, releasing loud sounds, roaring, bellowing, and so forth. A cry, a roar, a bellow, a battle cry. So when someone runs out on the field and they start raging and yelling out, and it's a battle cry and so forth, wielding their weapons, that's hem. It's really HM, this little structure, which is like the overseeing a room in a house and so forth, and the owl facing. Some of you know this owl as the quote-unquote OVO owl that Drake uses up for his company and so forth, stole it directly from the hieroglyphs of ancient Kemet. That's where that owl comes from. In Akan, hama, boisterous. The sea rages as if we're agitated by a storm, raging. So hama is raging, loud, boisterous. Hem in ancient Kemet is to roar, to bellow. Battle cry. To bellow is to be loud and boisterous and raging. So this same term. And as you can see, kai, it's also spelled ka. So the bowl is the K sound. The little bird is the A sound. The two strokes diagonal is E. But you also see the bowl, the K sound, the little bird here, A. So you have kai as well as ka. To think out, to cry out, call out, tell out, to sing, to repeat, to say. In Akan, you have ka, and it's a nasal A with the symbol over the A. Instead of ka, it's kan, to emit a sound, to utter, speak, say, or tell. So in ka, in ancient Kemet, means to say, to call out, to tell out, to speak. And ka means the same thing in Akan, same word. Then we get into a word dealing with cosmology. She, or shai, to fix, to appoint, to decide, to determine, to destine, to predestinate, to ordain, to commission. When you're talking about predestination, when a spirit comes into the world before they even get into the world, when they're in the spirit realm, they're directed to execute a certain function in the world. And they're sent into the world with a predestiny, so to speak, because they're coming here for a purpose. She, to fix, to appoint, to decide, to determine, to predestinate. The HY combination in Akan is the hiet, and it sounds like shet. So this is pronounced shet. To fix, set up, institute. And then you also have to set, constitute, appoint. Then you have to predestine, predestinate, appoint, or ordain beforehand, to be predestined for. So, and we have a number of other terms like Adi for I, Eni for I in Akan, Bain meaning wicked or evil, Bain or Bani in Akan meaning bad, evil, wicked, Ma meaning to give, to grant, Ma in Akan to give, to hand, to communicate, bestow, to impart, to grant. And when you see to hand, they even show the arm with the open palm here, handing or giving and so forth. So, as you can see, we can prove that the Akan people are speaking the same language. There are thousands of words in the Akan dictionary. You put it side by side with the hieroglyphic dictionary, same words, same meanings, and same cosmological meanings as well. If an Akan person went back in time and stood in front of a person from ancient Kamit and heard them speaking, every single word they said, the Akan person would know what they mean because they use the same words. Sometimes they're configured differently, with a noun and verb are reversed, but like in English, if you say, I am going to the store, someone else in another language may have their structure, to the store, I go, to the car, I go, to the bank, I go. Instead of in English, it's I go, the verb is first, I am going to the store, I'm going to my car, things like that. But outside of the flip with regard to subjects and predicates and nouns and so forth, the terms themselves are the same. We can bring that, and we bring that to bear in our course. Now, so let's look at some of the book itself. Hold on a second. All right. Hold on 1 second. Give me a second. Let me switch something real quick just to show you something in addition to that. Show you certain words, and certain words are, all of the words we can find in the language and culture. Let me show you an example of a deity. And this is from our Odwirafo book. It's important with regard to the actual religious aspect that we can prove that as well. I want to show you, for example, the divinity Herubedeti, and the male and female divinities Herubedet and Bedat. Let me scroll back for that. Hold on a second. Okay, so you see Ma'ah and Ma'at, the male and female force of divine law and balance. These are images from the tomb of Ramesu the sixth on the right, Ramesu the third, the so-called Ramses the third on the left. When I was in Kamit, I took these pictures myself. So this is Ma'at, the female force of divine law and balance. This is Ma'ah, as you can see his name spelled right next to him, found in the 11th hour of the Duat inside the tomb of Ramesu the sixth. So as soon as you go into the tomb of Ramesu the sixth and start walking down right on to your right, on the wall is the entire text of the Shat Duat, the book of the Duat, the book of the underworld or the ancestral realm. And if you look at the 11th hour of the Duat, you will find the male divinity Ma'ah. So he's right there. We were showing here in this book about the terms divine law, love, and divine hate, and we showed the combination of both in ancient Kemet and Akan culture. I just wanted to show you an image right quick. I thought it was earlier in the book. Hold on 1 second. There it is. So when you look at the goddess Sekhmet or Sechima, who's also called Bedat or Abena, so the male deity Benan Akan is the deity of the planet so-called Mars, war, fire, metal, sacred colors red, Bena. And then the female divinity is Abena, who's also called Sechiman Akan. Well, Sechiman Akan is Sechimat or Sekhmet in ancient Kemet. Heru Bedet, or Heru Bedat, is the deity Bena in Akan. So we go through the detail to prove that these are the same deities. So for example, if an Akan person is born, a male is born on Tuesday, he's called Kwa Bena, a servant of the deity Bena. I was born on Sunday, the day of the divinity Asi, which is Awusi Alsar. So I'm Kwa Asi or Kwasi or Kwasi, a servant Kwa of the divinity Asi or Awusi Alsar. So someone Kwa Bena, a servant of the deity Bena. If it's a female born on that day, it's Abena, Abena. If she's a child of the female divinity Bena or Abena. In ancient Kemet, that's Bedat. Bedat became Bena in Akan. Sekhmet is called Bedat in ancient Kemet in the city of Edfu. And Edfu is also called Jeba, but it's also called the sacred city of Bedat and so forth. That's the winged sun disk that you often see in Kemet. Very popular symbol, the winged sun disk. You'll see it spelled Behut here, but also Bedat. And you'll see typically it's spelled Bedeti or Bedet. So there are two meanings, Bedet and Bedat. When it's written as Bedat, that's the Akan, Bena. Same deity, same planet, same sacred color, same function in creation, male and female, Bena and Abena, which is Bedat and Bedaet and so forth, same deities. So we could show multiple deities in Kemet, exact same deities that our Akan people worship every day with the same names, same functions in creation, governing the same planets or sun or moon or oceans or rivers or mountains, whatever feature of creation they govern, same functions that you look in the text of Kemet and find. So that gives texture to the language when we study it. When Black people study the language of Kemet, it's not just something intriguing. This is our ancestral language and culture. You study the language, it gives you more insight into your divine function in creation, how to operate in the world in a harmonious way, how to engage the ritual practice to realign yourself with divine order on a daily basis. So this is the introduction to the book. I just want you to get into some details of it. So first, he's talking about the script of Kemet, the different periods of the language, the old empire, the middle empire, the new empire, the late empire, and so forth, the Coptic dialect, the orientation of the script. Okay, hold on 1 second. So they start off with the monoliteral list, sign list, monoliteral, single, mono, sign. So you look here. Some will say that's the African vulture. Some will say the African fish eagle, but that's the bird flattened head and so forth. Origin of the A sign and so forth. If you look the lowercase a right here, and you look at the body of the bird with the stomach and so forth, the English alphabet is stolen directly from the hieratic script, the shorthand version of the script of Kemet. Same thing with the numeral system from 0, 1 through 9, stolen directly from Kemet. So the Whites and Offspring never created any script. They stole it directly from us. So that's the A sound, as in father. The reed is it can be but it can also be E or E. Two reads together is E. You have the forearm with the open palm is the ah sound as well. You have the little chick, which is the U or W sound. You have the foot, which is the B, the little footstool, which is the P, the horned viper, which is the F, and if you stand the horned viper up, and you see it in the shorthand version, the hieratic script, if you flip it around, that's the symbol for the letter F. You look at the owl, it's the M sound. In the hieratic script, they just take a portion of the face and make it that way, and if you flip it right side up and so forth, it is the M sound. The wavy water line is the N sound. And if you look at, it's like 7 different ways, but the up, down, the N sound, the vibratory wave rate, and so forth. But the up, down, up, and if you cut the rest of it off, up, down, and up is the English letter N and so forth. N, so same thing. So you have the open mouth, the sound. So when you say your mouth is open like that. That's the sound right there. The reed shelter in the field, that's the H sound. We just saw that. The twisted flax is another H. So as you go through, you'll see that the entire quote unquote alphabetic script is borne out. The little placenta or CF, black circular piece, the animal belly, which is the K sound. There's another K sound like the CH combination in English can be K or Cha. You have the K sound CH combination, which is really, they'll often make it an H with a mark under it. They used to spell it KH. Either way, it's the K sound or the Cha sound. The horizontal bolt that we saw earlier is one of the S sounds. The perpendicular piece of folded cloth is the other S. Just like in English, you have the S sound, but then the letter C can be a K, but it can also be a S sound like cellular. So the pool of water is the sh sound. The hill or slope is another K sound, and they often use a Q to represent that. We just saw earlier the basket with the lip is the K sound, the K sound, and that's the origin of the K. And then you have the stand for a jar, receptacle, the G sound, ga, the loaf of bread, T. The tethered rope is the T, but also the cha sound. Hand with the open palm is the duh sound, and then the snake, the reared snake is the ja. And then you have some of the late period forms and so forth. So then they start getting into the first person singular, second person singular, and you get into the technical aspects of the language. There's the biliteral sign list where there are 2 sounds. So this ba bird is ba and ba, which is the spirit, the ba, as opposed to the ka. So there's an entire list of the biliteral sounds, biliteral sound list and so forth. Then you get into the triliterals. One of the more famous triliterals is the HTP, which is a loaf of bread on a reed mat, and that is the hetep sound. Another one is the Ntoro, NTR. And this is where our language, our knowledge of the language comes in handy, because very often Ntoro, NTR is written without the vowels. So they never knew what the vowel placement was. In the older dictionary, again, they had this convention. They said, well, if we don't know what the vowel is going to be, but we want to facilitate pronunciation when we're trying to study the language, we're just sticking E in between the consonants. So you often see that as netter or netcher, but it's spelled NTR. Our people knew what the vowels were, so we didn't have to always put the vowels in there when we're writing these symbols out. But in these times, they wouldn't understand. But in our Khan culture, for example, we still use the same term. Ntoro means deity. On the masculine side, it's a god, a deity, a masculine divinity, force in nature. Ntorot, with the T at the end, is feminine. That means goddess. Ntoro is a god. Ntorot is a goddess. In Akan, Ntoro means a male divinity. Ntong or Ntorong means a female divinity. Same term. We have the proper vocalization. We still use the term every single day. And to that end, let me show you in our book. So this again, one of the books in our anthology. One of the books you see on the back in our anthology is this one, the term Kamit Ntoro. And let me show you from that book just to give you an example. And I'll show you, I'll put the link in the chat room that's on the board right now that says PayHip at the bottom of the screen. You can order our book from there as well as the course. Let me just give you an example of what we're talking about to give more depth to what's being taught in comparison to other courses. Okay. So this is page 509, beginning on page 509 in our 600-page book. This is one of our books called Kamit Ntoro, the Black Nation and Divinity. Two separate articles, research articles we combined to make a book showing the origin of the term Kamit, what it means linguistically and cosmologically, and how it's found in the Akan language, and also the word Ntoro, so-called Neter. Ntoro, origin and meaning of the term Neter or Ntoro, deity as defined in ancient Kemet and Akan culture. So you see the little divinity seated, shrouded with the beard, and the symbol of the Ntoro. And that's the symbol of an axe. And they always wondered what is the axe for and so forth, and why does that represent deity? So we go into detail and show all of that. You have Aku, which is a carpenter's adze or axe, a battle axe in ancient Kemet. Akuma is an axe in Akan. Hold on a second. Just want to show you the image of the individual possessed. So this is the symbol that you will see that represents deity. A seated, shrouded, mummified figure with a braided beard, and the symbol of the axe representing divinity. And the axe coming down is like when the lightning come down and splits the tree and so forth. When the spirits come down and possess us, it's like the axe coming down and so forth, splitting the head of the person. Spirit possession takes place, and the deities communicate with the population through animating the body of the priest or priestess who was possessed. So the axe deals with ritual invocation that creates an incision into the spirit realm, a gateway, so there can be communication back and forth and travel back and forth. We go into detail about all of that, but I just want you to see a specific image in here, and then we'll get back to the other book. See, in our Akan culture, there's the curved sword that we use ritually. But here's the piece we want you to see. When an Okomfo becomes possessed by a divinity, then they direct the people, that spirit, through the body of the person. The man is just walking around at first or dancing at first to the ritual drum. Then all of a sudden he begins to spin and the spirit comes down and gets in his body. Now the spirit is using his body and so forth. directs the people to put that sacred shidel or white powder over them to let them know this is the spirit speaking. And he has this curved sword and so forth. So you have the deity holding the curved sword. This is a physical representation of this ancient symbol of the deity and the axe, which is a curved, quote unquote, sword. We show this actual glyph every time there's a ritual in our Khan culture, as well as the hoodoo tradition in North America. There's this notion of when we take an axe in North America, when there's a storm, to split the storm, and it's a ritual piece, and we have the axe in the corner of the house and so forth, or you have an axe on our shrines, our ancestral shrines or deity shrines and so forth. People have written about that. White ethnographers in the 1800s would talk about the Negro in the South has an axe in his room, and when the storm comes, he goes outside or she goes outside to split the storm with the axe and invoke the deity of thunder and lightning who wields an axe, which is Shango, or Yao in Akan. He's Shango in Yoruba, Yao in Akan, Evioso in Vodun and so forth, Heru in ancient Kamit. But wielding that axe is part of the sacred ritual implements of the divinity. So when the deity possesses, they go and grab their sacred ritual implement. You'll see the deity possesses, they direct the people to put powder over the body, and then they go and find their axe. They either tell you to go get it, or that spirit will walk and find that axe and get it. And now you have a deity itself in the physical world holding the curved sword, which in this context, in our Khan culture, that's an axe. This is a symbol from ancient pre-dynastic Nekken of Southern Kemet. You see the person wielding the curved sword and so forth. That same curved sword used in Akan, which is in the form of an axe and Akuma and so forth. This is what we're dealing with. So that's, once again, that's the difference between, when people just study the language and say, oh, Arit means eye. Okay, Aro means mouth. And they just, list these different things and say, oh, that's interesting. But for us, when we say these words, we invoke the divinities with these sacred sound vibrations. We bring those spirits closer to us. We get greater insight because they can influence us. They come in dreams and so forth. If we're about to make a wrong move, to go in a certain direction or drive down the street that we normally drive down, and then the spirit tells us, don't go down that street. And we have this strong urge to go in another direction. And then we find out later there was a shooting on that street. And if we had drove down that street, we would have gotten shot and so forth. We listen to these ancestresses and ancestors and the deities that govern us, that brought us into the world, just like your parents bring you into the world, and they protect and guide you. So once you grow up and have your own agency and you operate on your own power and so forth, you have the proper guidance. The forces in nature that govern us, they guide us so that when we operate in the world, we can make the best decisions and can avoid disorder. So all of that is tied up into the Ntoro, the axe, and so forth, which also you have a flag on a pole that has something similar, but that flag on the pole, when the wind comes, it causes the flag to begin to straighten up. Now, if there's no wind, the flag's, cloth is just hanging. But as soon as the wind comes, that flag is showing up and it looks like this axe. The wind is an invisible force. So when the invisible force shows up, it causes the thing to straighten out. When the invisible force shows up, the Ntoro, the invisible force shows up, then something changes within the body of the person. So the flag symbol, we show that in the book as well as the axe. Some people assume that it was only a flagpole, but actually it's an axe as well. And in fact, let me show that real quick, because some people the whites in Arab Spring were confused about that. So they're like, well, maybe it's an axe, maybe it's a flagpole, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. This is Ramesu II, Ramesu II. He has this axe, battle axe, as you can see here. And he's, using it to attack the prisoners. He's not holding a flagpole with a flag. That's an axe. Now, we do point out that there are sacred flags like these flagpoles, the flags hanging and so forth. But once again, when the spirit shows up, the invisible force, the wind shows up, then the flag is splitting the wind, just like the axe is splitting the wind. So, but there's an entire cosmology about splitting the wind with the axe that you only know about if you deal with ancestral religion. If not, looking at this symbol, and some people saying it's a flagpole and some people saying it's an axe, you would have no idea what they're talking about. You say, oh, maybe it's an axe or a flagpole, and you keep going. So, okay, so they show the trilateral pieces. So once you get the monoliteral, biliteral, and triliteral, not trilateral, but triliteral symbols and their meanings and so forth, then you can start looking at the structure of the sentences and way things are formed and so forth. And then you can start learning to read and write the language. So again, this book is a 271-page book. Very detailed. You see here the ankhs with the arms and hands and so forth. So, just wanted to share that with you in that context. Now, see a couple of questions. As a Kwabena, it's interesting that Bena is described as a form of sun god, which is half true, and Benu is to set something in meadow in the hieroglyphic dictionary. Yes, so when you see Heru, Bedat, the winged solar disk and so forth, Heru Bedat is the son of Ra and Ra'at. Whereas you have Heru, the son of Al-Sar, and Al-Set is a different Heru divinity. So he's connected to the sun. He's a spiritual force in creation. He can operate through the sun as well as the planet Bena and so forth. That's why they have the winged sun disk, but he can possess the sun just like he possesses the planet Bena. And there's a fusion of the solar disk with the planet Bena and so forth. But Heru Bedet is the son of Ra. And then you have Heru, son of Al-Sar and Al-Set, who born of Al-Set when she's the virgin and so forth, and the whole story. Okay. So let me switch over right quick. Now, when you go to our page, let me make sure you can see it. Okay. So when you go to the Paya page, this is the link right here. You'll see a number of our products on the page. You see, for example, our book, Ojira-sem. This is the front cover. This is the back cover with the 12 books that we're dealing with, including some of the books that we talked about over the past week or so here on the channel. When you look at the live streams, for example, we were talking about the origin of the term Africa, Afuraka, Afuraikai, the children of Afura and Afurait, and so forth. We talked about Ankh, the origin of the term yoga, Karakasa, the origin and nature of the chakra, and so forth. The Kamit Ntoro book, the More Means Dead book. The Rekit Hinasperet, the etymology and cosmology of the terms religion and spirit. We talked about the origin of the term God and so forth. The Kuku Tuntum, talking about how Jesus and Muhammad and Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, Brahman, all fictional cartoon characters who never existed of any form or of any race whatsoever, and how these fictional cartoon characters were manufactured by the whites and offspring after they invaded ancient Kemet, trying to corrupt our traditions to enslave us further. So they manufactured these fictional characters and these pseudo Fake Religions. So that book is available on our site. It is on Amazon, but it costs more on Amazon because Amazon takes 60% from all booksellers. So that's why, as we always say, booksellers, they will have their book on Amazon because it can be seen, but they also have their book on their own page because we can give you a cheaper price because we're not getting that 60% hit from Amazon. So it's cheaper here. On the website, is Amazon is $59.95. Here, $44 plus shipping. So, but let me go back. So you see the Medut Ntoro Part 1 and Part 2. When we talk about what's within the course, 6-week course, you receive the ebook version of Let the Ancestors Speak. That's a 271-page book. And it took us 6 weeks in the original course to go through the first half of the book. And then it took another 6 weeks for us to finish the second half of the book. So that's why we have parts 1 and 2. One of the reasons we did this course is not only because people knew that we practiced the religion as well as studying the linguistics so we could show the cultural comparisons and so forth, but also because people are charging hundreds of dollars to take a course, $300, $400, and you sit with the individual and they just take you through a book and give you basic information about this symbol represents the T sound, this symbol represents the R sound, and this is how these terms are put together. They're charging you hundreds of dollars. Our course, as you can see, is $15. So we're not going to overcharge people hundreds of dollars to study the same material that they would study from some other course, but we're giving you additional information, plus the books that we publish as well, to give you greater insight. But our Part 1 is $15. You can go through that. You can download that now and access it. You get the 2.5 hour per session. Most of the sessions like 2.5 hours. The video recording of that where we're going through the book and so forth. You get the book as well. And the free book downloads of our books that we reference in the course. You can check Part 1 out. If you like it, then you can check out Part 2. But we wanted to make ours affordable. Okay. Hold on 1 second. And you see Part 2 is just a course, same thing. Also, it was a 6-week course. Originally, when it was a live course, it was $30. Now that it's archived, self-paced study is half price, is $15. So you can get both of them at the same time, or you can try Part 1 first. If you like it, you can go to Part 2. We have a number of our other courses. We have 2 documentary films that we've produced that are on our YouTube channel. Tomorrow, I need to let you know that tomorrow we're starting once again our 4-week online course, Susu, which is the ancient Akan term, an ancient term in ancient Kamit for meditation. As you can see here, Amenhotep, the son of Hapu, seated in the traditional Susu pose, meditative pose, and so forth. So the 4-week course, you take the 4-week course, you become certified as a meditation instructor, and then you can use that credential as a professional credential to go to places of business, go to schools, go to human services organizations, cultural organizations to conduct meditation sessions. Most of them will charge or pay you between $100, $200 to conduct like a half-an-hour session. So if you went to a human services organization and they have women who are in a shelter and they're getting them housing and things like that, and they have group therapy once a week, and they'll say, okay, we're going to bring somebody in on Friday. We normally have our group therapy session. But before we get started, we're going to bring this person in to do a meditation exercise with you for like 15 minutes to help you get focused and grounded and rebalance your hormones and reduce your stress and reduce anxiety and assist you with weight loss and overcoming addictions, all these different things that are beneficial for Susu. And you come in, introduce yourself, take a couple 5 or 10 minutes to talk about what you're going to do, take them through a 10 or 15 minute meditation session, and then have like 5 or 10 minutes of question and answer afterwards. That program, they will pay you $100 to $200. If it's a bigger organization, they may pay between $300 and $500 for that. But most of them will pay, even a small organization, to pay $100 to $200 for you to come in and conduct, a half an hour session like that. If you go to a corporation, they have their employees doing workshop seminars and breakout sessions. They're enhancing productivity with the workforce. So they say, before we get started with our conference, we're going to have somebody take us through a mindfulness meditation exercise. They bring you in, you do it for 15, 20 minutes. They'll pay $200 or $300 for that, but you need to have a credential. So we decided to credential what we're doing. We've been publishing on Susu meditation for 20 years, over 20 years, practicing for over 30, but deciding to make a certification, we started that process last year. And we saw that people were charging thousands of dollars for, teaching mindfulness techniques and so forth. And they're teaching things from a Hindu perspective. Meditation Susu began in ancient Afuraka. One of the books that you will learn that we go through is within our text. Let me show you that real quick. The origin of the term yoga, Karakasa, origin and nature of the chakra. So that is actually one of the books you'll study in the 4-week course. Now, we also have an option if you are not able to take the live version of the course that starts tomorrow. It's December 16th through January 6th, every Tuesday for 4 weeks. If you can't do the live version, we have the archive version, self-study, which is 50% off. And you could do a down payment of $39 and then $39 a month. That total archive version is $199. And just pay, $39 a month until you pay it off. But typically what happens is people go through the course within about 4 weeks. They paid their first $39. And then the first time they get a gig, like conducting a meditation session, they usually get either $100 or $200, maybe $150. And they just paid off their entire course the first time they got a gig. So again, we wanted to make our course affordable. So that's why we decided to start teaching that, because people are charging, $2,000, $3,000 for meditation courses, and they're just teaching you some aspects of Hinduism, and we're not doing that. One of the books that we study is one of my books that's in this 600-page volume, Ankh, The Origin of the Term Yoga, Karakasa, The Origin and Nature of the Chakra. So we show etymologically that the term yoga, when they say it's from the Proto-Indo-European root yunk or yug or yunk, meaning to tie or to bind or to yoke and so forth. And you'll see that here. The Sanskrit word yoga has a literal meaning of yoke, used to join or unite. They're talking about an infix, which is a vowel morpheme that interrupts the morpheme. In Proto-Indo-European had one infixing verb stem or marker, ne, alternating with n. They say, for example, the root yug or yug, link, join, or yoke. The present imperfect finite stems were yuneg or yunk, yunk. So when they talk about the word yoga, comes from the Proto-Indo-European root yug or yuk, with the infix of an n, yunk, yunk. And it means to join or unite or to link. And that became yuk or yuka, and later in English, yoke. When you look at the term Ankh, as you can see here, Ankh. That's one way of spelling it, Ankh. But then there's another way, which means life. But another way of spelling it is the symbol of the Ankh and a goat, the domesticated animal. That's an animal life or an animated force. So that's life. But instead of just Ankh with the A with the bar over the top, Ankh. This one is the A with the dot over the top, which is actually the reed, as you can see here. And then the Ankh. So it's E and Ankh together. The first A is the reed, in this context, E, and then the Ankh. So it's E Ankh, which is Eonk, Eonk, Eonk. And that Eonk is what the Whites and Offspring stole to become Yonk, meaning to join, yoke, or unite, but to yoke or link. When you look at the actual spelling in the glyphs, as you can see here, we blow it up for you a little bit. That's the symbol. That's one of the spellings of the word Ankh, Eonk. And you see that the Ankh is actually around the neck of the animal in the form of a yoke. So Ankh or Eonk is a yoke. And it is the entity that's the link or the yoke between the Ba, which is the spirit, and the Ka, which is the soul. And on the feminine side, that's Ba'et, which is the spirit, feminine for females, and Ka'et, the soul for females, the divine consciousness. But the Ankh is the gateway or the link between the Ba and the Ka, the spirit and the soul, the Ba'et and the Ka'et. So it's a yoke. The Ankh is a yonk. The Ankh is a yoke. The Whites and Offspring can't teach you that because they don't know anything about that. So that's one of the books that we go over in our course. And you can sign up for that course, whether you want to do the live course that starts tomorrow or the archive course, which is a self-paced study. You can complete it in 4 weeks, or if you need to take longer to complete it in, longer than 4 weeks, you can do that as well. Let me show that once again. Okay, so that starts tomorrow, and you see we have the $39 down payment, whether you do the live course or the archive course. More people are starting to deal with the archive courses now, so they can do it self-paced. Because of scheduling, everybody can't, do a course every once a week in the evening sometimes because of scheduling. So they'll take the 50% off archive course for $199 and do the $39 down payment. So let me get back to, so this is all on the PayHip site that you see on the bottom of the screen. We also have our Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy degree program, NIMDA SIM. You'll see that the Medut Ntoro is one of our 6-week courses. And then we have part 2, which is another 6-week course. We look at this image right here. That image is of the 42 courses that we have curated over the years. I published my first book December 21st of the Gregorian calendar date of 1997, which we call 12,998. So this Sunday is the 28th anniversary of that book. And since then, I've published 31 books total. But we've also curated 42 online courses. And those 42 courses together comprise the Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy degree. Any major university, if you look at their Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy degree, it takes about 40 or 42 courses for you to pass to obtain that degree. We have 42 courses. They give accurate information, not pseudo-Greek philosophy or Roman philosophy or the nonsense that they teach. We have actual real philosophy, so you can see the differences. Our philosophical foundations still sustain us today. Nobody is operating based on Greek philosophy, or Greek mythology. So we have a bachelor's degree program, and once you go through the process, you can complete it in 42 weeks or less, one of those courses per week and so forth. But what we do is we show you, and you'll see some of that on the page. When you click on the page, we touch on some of it, but we go into detail. The purpose is for edupreneurship. Edupreneurship is a burgeoning field, and we're in the forefront of that, where you take your skills as far as being an educator and you immediately go into business for yourself to educate. So you're an educational entrepreneur. There's a definition of entrepreneurs and so forth that you can find on the internet. But we talk about paid opportunities available with this Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy degree. There are many different human services organizations that will have someone come out and teach certain things about philosophy and culture, because that deals with self-worth and self-esteem. And then once people are strong within their own self-worth, it's easier for them to overcome addictions and anxiety and depression and these various different things. So they bring people in like AA meetings, NA meetings, women's shelters, family shelters. There are cultural organizations, MLK Holiday, Black History Month, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Black August, Kwanzaa, all throughout the year. They say, hey, do you know anybody who can do a 15-minute presentation on this subject? We need someone to talk about Black history or ancient Kamit or something. And they'll pay you a few $100s just to come out and speak for 10 minutes. All throughout the year, there are organizations who do that. There are events, schools and after-school programs, weekend programs for youth, summer programs for youth. So if you're interested in working with youth, these programs have money set aside to bring someone in and teach something to the youth about our philosophy, our culture, our values, and so forth. African-centered bookstores, businesses, organizations, conferences, cultural events, spiritual events, study groups, all of these things all across the country, all throughout the year. They have people come out and do a short presentation. You're going to have a great deal of knowledge. You can focus your attention on the origin of the term Africa, or the origin of the fictional character Muhammad or Jesus or something. You can talk about that for 20 minutes and get paid. You can talk about the origin of the term yoga, the origin of the term chakra. There's so many different things you can talk about that they will bring you out, not just once, but multiple times. And throughout the year, you have something in February for Black History Month, a few things, something in January, something. Memorial Day is a Black holiday that our people established before the whites and our offspring took it over. So now Black people are learning that, and they're having Black Memorial Day observances. Juneteenth is now popular. People have Juneteenth observances, and they bring people out to speak. So you can use your bachelor's degree to do that. Within the first couple of few months, you would have generated enough money to cover your entire tuition. The tuition is $600. You get a full bachelor's degree when you go through the entire program. But we have a $49, monthly payment plan, down payment plan, installment plan if you want to do it that way. Within the first few gigs, the first time you get a $200 payment for a speaking engagement, you go to a couple other places, you would have generated $600 and paid yourself back for the tuition. And from that point on, you're generating for yourself and also empowering our community. So we always try to endeavor to make our programs affordable and show you exactly how you can immediately use your certifications to immediately begin to generate income for yourself. It's not about just being deep and having silly debates with people online and foolishness like that. Okay, so those are just a few of the things that are on the page. But when you look on the page, you'll see a number of different things. We have our Sase Day Earth Element Group Healing Ritual coming up this Sunday. You can check that out as well. But Medut Ntoro, Divine Inscription, Reading and Writing the Language and Hieroglyphs of Kamit, Part 1, Part 2, $15. Check that out. That's what I wanted to share with you all. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything in the comments. Kad or karat, that does mean child, but then for kwa, it means a servant or a subject of. So a child can be a assistant or a servant of a sovereign and so forth. So in that context, yes, it can be a relationship with kara. Is a donkey a small cattle? In this context, it's not a donkey per se. It's talking about a domesticated goat for that. The donkey has a different sound vibration associated with that. Okay. And there's a reason why they use the goat spiritually for that animated entity. Okay. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with everyone today. So check out the course. Start with part 1. Let us know how you like the course. It's just a $15 course. You do get that 271-page book, Let the Ancestors Speak, the grammar and language of Kamit and so forth. Very, very good book. Let us know what you think about it. Share the information as you're going through the book and so forth. If you have any questions about certain things that need to be clarified when you're going through the course, of course, you can reach out to us for that clarification. But that's what we wanted to share today. So again, Yerase, we thank you for joining in with us, and Yabeshiabio, we will meet again.